Well, welcome to this session. My name is Jeremy Schwartz. I'm from NJPA, or National Joint Powers Alliance, and the nature of today's session is going to be to cover the contract that Motion Industries has been awarded and look at how you can utilize that to effectively approach the government sector of your business. We have roughly about 35 to 40 minutes of content, and then from there, I'll look to open it up to question and answer as the nature of today's format. Also, if at all possible, as we go through this, if you have questions as they come up, I'd appreciate it if you could just type them into the chat box. I have some of the lines muted, some of them unmuted. If all attendees start asking questions at the same time, it gets a little tough for me to figure out who's asking what. So if we could use the chat box, then I'll have them recorded, and I'll do my best to answer those in progression. So just going over the generalized nature of today's training. We want to increase your awareness. Some of you, I was told, maybe are even newer to government business in general and what that whole environment's like, why it's even relevant to have a contract when approaching the government space, so we'll go into that a little bit. From there, we'll talk about how to simplify the sales process, and then from there, I believe that you'll probably walk away to the various branches and regions and talk about strategies, how you want to present the contract. You'll understand some of the resources that you can get from NJPA and how you can utilize those. And from there, it's just going to be that execution and implementation phase. At the end of the day, the reason why I hope you're going to stay logged into this section is help you understand how you can capture more of that government business using this contract as a sales tool. That's really the nature of today's training. Part of this conversation is who is NJPA and why is that relevant to you? The quick answer is NJPA, we're a government agency, and you'll find out as we go along why that's very relevant to approaching government business regardless of where you are in the United States. We also are doing a little bit in Canada, but I think today we'll maybe talk mostly about the United States and the way governments are doing business here, how cooperative contracts are becoming more consistently the way government agencies are going to market and buying what they need to buy. So how that can change your sales culture, having that knowledge. Just a couple quick questions to ask yourself. Are you approaching government space, whether it's school districts, higher ed, cities, counties, townships, special districts? The only thing that we're not going to talk as much about today is federal business. Really, at the end of the day, NJPA can work for federal agencies, but they tend to do, their preference tends to be the GSA schedule, and that's a separate conversation. So the primary focus of what we're talking about today is government business in that state or local unit of government. So states, counties, townships, cities, boroughs, water districts, rural electric districts, public golf courses, and then any type of educational unit. Those are the main things that we're going to be talking about today. And then how to utilize this contract as an advantage when you're approaching business in that space. So before we get into looking at two different processes to doing government business, I want to talk about the nature of government business, and that is across the board, there tends to be comfort in government sectors if they can find stuff that they need to purchase that already exists on contract. Now, this is not everyone, but it tends to be more and more the norm. Whether it's a school district or it's a county or it's a city, they're having increasingly less resources to work with. So one of the terms that you may start hearing as you work in the government space is that term piggybacking, looking to see if they can piggyback off another government contract to get to what they need. If they don't do that, then they have to follow their conventional bid process if they're looking to spend any amount of money. There's laws no matter where you go that stipulate any agency that has any amount of taxpayer funding has specific procurement laws they have to follow when they're going to spend over a certain threshold of dollars. That's led to a very traditional and what folks have found to be cumbersome process called a bid process. Whether they issue a request for proposal, an invitation for bid, any one of these variety of processes, it tends to be very cumbersome and monotonous. And that's where in the past it's been maybe not as attractive for agencies such as yourself to go after government business. So what we're going to do on this particular slide is I'm going to scroll you through what the traditional bid process looks like, and then we're going to show you that same cycle but running it through your NJPA contract because I want you to compare and contrast the difference between how you may have done or heard of doing business with government in the past to now how you can do it going forward. So at a fairly high level, this is what it's looked like traditionally going after government business, meaning that business that has dollars to spend that came from the tax base. So typically what you have to do is sales 101. You go out and you identify a prospect, build a relationship, and then when you've developed that relationship, you know you've gotten to the place where you need to, where they ask you to sit down and help them develop the spec that they're going to advertise because they have to go through a competitive bid process. So typically you would spend a little energy explaining all the benefits of Motion and why they would be working with you, help them understand some of the nuances and try to craft a spec that's unique to a service and product and goods that you can provide. But still, at the end of the day, by law, they have to go and publicly advertise that opportunity. That's just the nature of the competitive bid process. That's when your competition can then enter the picture and work on digging into the opportunity. You all will have to go through and respond to the bid. There'll be a formal bid opening. They will look to present the award. In many cases, they look at dollar only, so low cost. And then after the award's made, they have to wait for a formal protest period, typically from those that are not awarded the contract to protest the process or challenge. Once that is finally cleared, then they can at last issue a PO and the awarded vendor can begin delivering. Typically at the end of this process is a lot of time and fairly slim margin. This is what government work has looked a lot like in the past. This is why many of you perhaps haven't even approached it or have approached it begrudgingly or reluctantly. So let's take the same opportunity now and say, how could this have looked had we approached it or should we approach it with our NJPA awarded contract? Two things that never change is you have to get there early, you have to have a relationship, and you have to build them to the point where they realize that the Motion solution is what they really need, what they really want. At that point, as they're just about to start talking to you about writing a bid and putting it out on the street, that's when you would educate them on the contract you have. Some of the key points are that the contract you have has already been competitively bid. You already went out through a process that was very similar to what they might do themselves, and that it would satisfy their bid requirements. This takes a little bit of time for them to review the documentation, to understand, to make sure it really would be a piggyback type situation. What you will find is once they have those answers met, you're able to close the business, they're able to give you a PO, and you can begin delivering all before that particular opportunity goes out to your competitors. What you're essentially using is one contract to satisfy the requirements of multiple different agencies. Now, I try to take my time on this slide to make sure that you can compare and contrast is the NJPA contract you were awarded satisfies their bid requirements. They do not, by law, need to duplicate that process and rebid it themselves. And that's the part that sometimes takes some educating for them to understand how it works. They get the documentation from us to understand how they can use it to meet their audit requirements. And this is really the crux of the whole conversation we're going to talk about today is how you can use the NJPA contract you've been awarded to satisfy the bid requirements of these different agencies across the country, not skip their requirements, but satisfy them. I will bring this up multiple times. There's a significant difference between satisfying their bid requirements and skipping their bid requirements. We do not ever want to use the word skip, because you are not skipping, you are satisfying, and it's a big difference to those employees at the various agencies that you'll be meeting with. How is this legal? How does it work? NJPA, the National Joint Powers Alliance, is a government agency. We're all public employees. We're governed by a publicly elected board of directors. Because of who we are and how we're governed, the legislature and the statutes that created and govern us, we legally have the authority to go out and conduct the competitive bid process, and other agencies, cities, counties, school districts, states can then utilize our process to meet their requirements. In all 50 states, there are laws, whether they're called cooperative purchasing laws, joint exercise of powers laws, interlocal laws. We do our homework, and we know every single state has statute in place that allows agencies in that state to piggyback or cooperatively purchase with another government agency. That's what allows us to do what we're doing. So we do the bid process, and then they use the contract as a result of that, in this case you, Motion Industries, to shorten their sales process and get to you with a structured contract pricing. Try to simplify the process as much as we can. NJPA, because of who we are, connect the dots between our members, which are the cities, the counties, the school districts, and so on and so forth, and you, the vendor. We go out and we do all the legal legwork, the bid process, the advertisements, the bid evaluation, all the steps they would have done themselves, because we have the legal authority to do so, because of who they are as a municipal agency, as a government agency, as a public agency. They can legally utilize this contract to satisfy their bid requirements and get directly to you. The work, the business goes directly between you and that agency. You do not quote them through us. We're not involved in that. How we're involved is if they ever need copies of the contract documents, they get those from us. Otherwise, it's directly between you and them. You, the local branch, working directly with the public sector municipal customers in your area, in your region, in your territory. So it's meant to be a procurement efficiency pathway, and that's how it's set up to structure. You, business to government, working directly. Just wanted to give you a little bit of a perspective on the size and scope of NJPA. This year, as you can see, the use of our services have been growing rapidly. This year, when we finish our fiscal calendar closes the end of June, we will be over $1 billion in member procurement through contracts that we've awarded. That's members in all 50 states and a handful now in Canada. Besides the Motion contract, we have over 200 contracts in a variety of spaces, from flooring to vehicles to heavy equipment, auto parts. So our members come to us looking for a variety of solutions. Now they've come to us looking for the power transmission solutions that Motion can provide, bearings and electrical. So you've got mechanical, electrical, pneumatic, the whole gamut that you can provide. They're looking to that solution as well. We share just a little bit of information with you just to kind of give you a rough idea of where things are occurring. So some data pulled from the first of the year in 2013 through roughly April of 2014 shows you by state the level of embracement, meaning the amount of dollars they're spending through NJPA awarded contracts. As you can see, the state with the greatest level of engagement as of the state range is California, but certainly several other states are very intense in their use as well. So that's something that we're very proud of, and we continue to work to grow that. Next, the states that have a yellow star, those indicate states that have selected at least one of NJPA awarded contracts and have adopted that at the state level. The significance from that is that in order to adopt that particular contract, regardless of what it is, they had to evaluate our bid process and approve of our bid process. That doesn't mean that the state's going to adopt every contract, but it does mean that the state has evaluated how we do our competitive bid process, which we do the same for every contract, And the state has said, yes, that meets our requirements. So that makes it even easier in those states for the cities and counties and townships and boroughs, because if the state has reviewed and approved our process, it makes it a lot easier. But as you can see in many of the other states that don't have stars, it certainly doesn't need to happen. Just makes it a little easier. So you can see, based on the color mapping we've done here, that we've got embracement in all 50 states, in some states very intense embracement. One of the pieces that I'll be working on with Anthony Chapman is he's been selecting various regions where I'm going to be pulling and sending to Anthony, maybe Carolyn or Vicki, some reports specifically looking at a couple areas where members are buying that you folks can use as kind of a warm sales call. If they're already buying from NJPA and they're buying off of these types of contracts, higher probability, those are good calls for you to make right off the bat. So just something for you to look forward to in the near future. We'll be starting with some running the states in the southeast region, moving from there to the southwest, and then on across the country, region by region. Here's another interesting bit of data for you. So this is a map looking at the same date range and showing you the top member vertical we have in those states over that date range. So the states that are yellow, that shows that the top member vertical are the cities in using our contract. The green would be, on those states, would be counties are the top member verticals using our contracts. Purple would be the state level departments, state agencies are the highest use members in those states. Orange is K-12, and then blue is higher ed. So you can see across the country, we've got different variants. We've got in some states it's cities that are the top user, in other states we've got K-12 or state agencies. We've got all these verticals represented in all states. It's just these are the most active vertical in those particular states. Another thing that I wanted to do was break down the data and just kind of show you some of the various categories we have contracts in. This contract, the motion contract, is probably going to fit within the facility and MRO category. So what you can see is for the last 3 years, 2014 data is not in yet, but 11, 12, and 13, you can see where we've experienced the greatest growth from our members using our contracts. All but one category, all but two categories have shown growth the last 3 years. Office Solutions and Transportation saw a soft let-off in 13 in those two categories. Also, we are just developing healthcare solutions, so we are constantly looking for things to bring greater awareness to NJPA, which means greater awareness to all the vendors that have a contract, which would include certainly Motion Industries. Then the last data slide to show you as we get ready to move on is, I just took the top 5 states in dollars spent through NJPA contracts and mapped out the top 3 verticals. So in California, the top 3 verticals using our contract are cities is number 1, counties is number 2, and public K-12 is number 3. Those are the top 3 purchasing verticals in California. So you can kind of see as we go across in Ohio, it's state is the highest, then higher ed, and then public K-12. In Virginia, it's counties is the highest. Counties are the highest users, then public K-12, then cities. And in Minnesota, it's K-12 is number 1, cities are number 2, and counties are number 3. So you kind of get the gist. So we are constantly evaluating our data set to look for who we can continue to market to share, because we're constantly trying to make our potential members and current members aware of all the opportunities. Just to give you a quick snapshot of some of the other vendors that are awarded contracts, just to let you know that you're part of a very recognized and respected set of vendor solutions, contract solutions NJPA members come to expect. So there's a lot of strong brand recognition as well. I've already touched on this, but just so you're aware, our members, NJPA members, continue to join weekly, come from all 50 states, and now seeing growth in Canada as well. So if you're talking to someone or thinking of talking to someone that's a public or municipal government educational entity and they're in any of the 50 states, and even some in Canada now, certainly this is a contract tool that they can use to get directly to you. Richard asked a question about industrial and safety products. Right now, those are not currently on the contract if you're talking like safety gears, PPE, things like that. I'll be talking to Anthony about that in the future, but right now the industrial safety stuff is not included on the contract. So Anthony's actually working, and others are working on some marketing literature to help clearly identify all those categories. We currently have a discount summary, if you will, that will kind of show you those various categories that are accessible through the contract as it stands. So thank you for the question. Again, I touched on this earlier, but the real value in this contract is that it satisfies their bid requirements. That's our responsibility. That's the value that NJPA brought to this process, is we did all the steps necessary to meet their competitive bid requirements. Because we're a government agency, we can do so, which is putting this contract in place that will expedite your sales process to them. Doesn't mean it'll happen overnight, but significantly shorter than if you waited for them to go out and issue their own bid. It can significantly reduce that process. And that's what we're hoping, that as you understand this and you present this, some of the folks you'll be talking to will already get this and they'll understand it. But there may be others that are still coming on new to the whole concept. And at the end of the day, we want them to understand they don't need to duplicate the bid process. NJPA already did it for them. They can piggyback on this. So some of the key pieces and part of why you're in this, attending this session today, is that you need to have a certain level of knowledge. One of the pieces we'll be talking about in a little bit is called the NJPA About Us brochure. That really goes over who we are, the process we follow. I call that the Don't Leave Home Without It piece. We'll send those out wherever we need to send them to, free of charge. You can download it. I can send it as a PDF file. That's really the piece that if they're not aware of who we are already, they're going to want to see, to understand we're government. We do a full seal bid, competitive bid process, to help warm them up to this as a viable solution for them to get to you. You're the what they need, we're the how to buy it. So it would be a great idea if you had a few minutes to take a look at that yourself and just kind of become familiar with the type of content we have in there. At the end of the day, just be able to present that this is legal, it will save them time, save them money, and it's something they can choose to do. Allows them to get directly to you versus going out to bid and risk having a low bid solution come in. Although this is a legal solution for them, know that acceptance does come down to their local interpretation. I'd say at least once every couple of weeks we have someone that calls in, and even though their laws allow them to do it, is just insistent that they don't want to, and we cannot change that. What we can do is help them understand legally how they can do it, but at the end of the day, know it's still their choice. Just to give you a bit of a snapshot, you're out there wondering, who can use this? Who's eligible for this? So this is a bit of a snapshot of the types of agencies that can utilize the contract you have to get directly to you. So we talked about state and local units of government, special districts, tribal nations, rural electric cooperatives are another good example. Any unit of government, and then nonprofits are all the types of agencies you can sell to through the contract. What would be some of their incentives? Well, as I mentioned, more and more as public agencies, I see a question just came in, I'll get to it in a second. A lot of these agencies are losing staff, there's not the dollars to replace them, so they're still needing to buy stuff, so this can help in that situation. I view to see if they're not duplicating our process, that means they can invest their time in other areas. If they know they want to end up with a motion solution, using this contract guarantees they end up with you, versus if they go out themselves, they risk the possibility of a low bid, an inferior low bid solution, which can create its own headaches. The question was asked, can you use this contract to satisfy a rebidding situation? My answer is potentially. If they have not already created the rebid documents, if they have not already advertised it, that now would be a great time to introduce them to this contract and ask them to consider it versus going out and doing the rebid themselves. If they've already done the rebid legwork, they've already got the bid out on the streets, it still legally could meet that, but what we find is typically governments, once they've invested that time and energy into their process, aren't going to cut it off typically. It kind of is a little bit of egg on their face if they already invested all the time and hours into writing their own bid doc. So the answer is really, it depends on where they are in the process. If they have not already drafted the bid doc, if they have not advertised it, get there, explain it to them, and yes, it could certainly legally satisfy their requirements. Some of this may be apparent to you, but not only does there need to be benefits to the end user, the public agencies, what are the benefits to you? Well, if you think about it, what you've got right now potentially is a contract that you can introduce over and over and over again to keep agencies from having to waste money doing their own bid cycle. That should save you quite a bit of time, which allows you to pursue even more opportunities. Also, if you're not having to invest your branch leg hours, man hours into responding to a whole bunch of local individual bids, that should give you more time to set up more client visits and any of the other things you want to do to be more productive and have greater sales. Like I said, it's almost a full line, but the industrial safety stuff is currently not on the contract. So just be aware of that. We do ask that the agencies become members of NJPA, and that's just a simple piece of paper we need to ties in their statutes with our statutes. It doesn't require any cost. There is no cost to be a member, but it's an important piece for them to take. We have several ways for them to become a member of NJPA. An online application we'll walk through here in a minute. They can print off a paper form if they prefer to be more formal, and it's great documentation for them to have on file as well. Another value point they may not think of is if they went out and did their own bidding and there was a protest, they'd have to deal with it themselves. If they use this contract to get to you and there's a protest by a local ma and pa joint saying that it wasn't fair, the protest has to be filed against NJPA, and they have to protest our competitive bid process by law. What you'll find is that because we do everything so thoroughly and detailed, it provides the necessary paper trail for the members in your areas, or I like to say future members in your areas, so that they understand they can legally use our contract so that you've been awarded to meet and satisfy their bid requirements. We're going to skip through these slides because I'm going to go out to the website here when we're done and show you a couple quick things. A couple pieces I want to make you aware of is the tremendous amount of resource that NJPA has to offer you. We publish a couple different pieces that I know would be valuable to you. One is called the About Us brochure. That's the brochure I call the Don't Leave Home Without a brochure. That talks all about the type of government agency we are. It talks about the competitive bid process we follow. The other piece that would most probably be interesting to you is our contract directory, which lists all the contract awarded vendors. What you will find sometimes is maybe they're interested in using Motion, but they anticipate maybe a little bit of legwork they're going to have to do to get it through a procurement officer or have to run before their city council. But when you show them the contract directory and they see, well, by going down this pathway, not only do I get access to Motion, I can get access to John Deere lawn tractors, and I get access to carpeting solutions, and I get access to garbage trucks, and I get access to office supplies. All of a sudden, it's not just about Motion, it's about why they need to do that for Motion plus all the other things that they would want to buy. So it gives them even greater incentive to go get that final piece of approval they need to use the contract. So great resources that you can use where you feel appropriate, and I'd encourage you to make sure and request those from us. And like I said, we send those out free of charge. Just need the physical address to send them to. We also do a variety of other things. As we travel around the country attending trade shows and doing training, we host events called Get to Know Us events. It's about a 1-hour event, so when we're in the area, you come in, meet us in person, learn what's new in it as far as new states, new agencies. Also, if you have questions as you've been out trying to use the contract, it's a great way to meet us in person and have some different conversation. We'll watch this video in just a minute here, but this is a video that's out on the website. I'll show you how to get to it. And this is a great tool. If you're talking to someone and they're not quite sure they get the concept of cooperative purchasing, this is a little less than a 3-minute video that breaks it down very simply. And I always like to say, if after watching this they still don't get it, pack your bags and walk away because it's a hopeless cause. This tool was designed to help you communicate what cooperative purchasing is all about and put it together in a very understandable format. So we'll watch that in just a minute. So now that you have this contract at your disposal to sell through, what are some of the pieces that you need to do? Well, obviously, you need to find out how to get in front of the government buyers in your area. You maybe have someone in the facilities department or the shop department, but you need to make sure and communicate to them that they can get directly to you now through this contract. Also, if there are different events, trade shows, conferences in your region where folks that would buy from you are attending, take the time to go there and catch up with them and make sure they're aware of this opportunity. You are still the what, the contract becomes the how. We have a variety of materials, as I already mentioned. Make sure you get a hold of Anthony or Carolyn or Vicki, or just contact me directly and ask for the materials. We talked about some of the procurement reports that I can provide. Ask me for the reports if you're not getting what you want, what's useful to you. I mentioned we are pulling some right now, in the process of pulling some to send to Anthony. So I'd say even in the next couple days, he'll have those in his hands that he can disseminate as appropriate. So kind of trying to put it all together for you, more and more government agencies are looking to purchase through contracts versus do their own bidding. Yes, still many of them do their own bidding, but more and more they're hearing about piggybacking, they're hearing about cooperative purchasing, and they're looking to investigate and asking what they can get off of contracts before they start doing their own bidding. So what you want to do is make sure that you're spreading the word in your area that they know about that, so that they don't maybe find out if your competitors have a co-op contract with another agency. The worst thing that can happen is that you have this tool in your pocket and you don't mention it until it's too late. So work on developing an understanding of who's looking to buy and getting in front of them sooner. It always comes down to these two decisions. What do they need to buy? That's your part of the equation. When they have certain types of needs, they're going to look to you for those needs, and then the next question is, how do they get to you? That's where we come in. You're the what, we're the how. Be patient with them. Understand, because they're a taxpayer-funded agency, that they need to buy through a bid process. What they need to also understand is they don't have to do the bidding themselves. That's where we come in. We already did it, and our process, the contract you hold, will satisfy their bid requirement. So just some strategies I want to talk on real quickly here. Don't wait for them to come out with their bids. Your best place to be is as you hear them talking about needing to do a bid, to get there sooner and present the contract to them before they invest the time and money in writing their own bid documents. If you're just going to wait to chase bids, this contract is not going to be nearly as valuable to you. It's strongest when you get it to them up front before they invest their own time and energy, okay? Also, take advantage of learning who else of our vendor family is in your area selling off a contract. Maybe talk to the Staples people. Maybe go to the Napa guys and talk to them. They all have contracts that they're selling through NJPA. Find out strategies that have worked for them, how they've set up these conversations. We can benefit from learning through the processes of others. And then training. Today is just kind of our ground floor introductory training. As you move forward with this and you uncover other things, let's get back together. We can set up a WebEx. We can do phone conferences. We've got a variety of ways to get together. So as you encounter challenges or have questions, we can continue to go through how to work through those to make sure that you build your knowledge of how to use this contract as an effective sales tool in the public government space. And as I said, the key phrase here, this contract will satisfy their bid requirements, not skip them. If you stay firm with that, stay firm with NJPA as their government agency, helping them understand what they can get from you, so know all the SKUs, know all the items that are available on the contract. That's being knowledgeable. As they understand your knowledge in this area, they become more comfortable, and as they become more comfortable, they choose you as their solution. Another key point I want to point out off this slide is when you have success, the best reference you can use are those customers that have already experienced buying through the contract. That's the best referral you can use. But if you don't have those, know that if you get into a tough situation where they're asking some really tough government questions about this contract, you can always put them in touch with me, and the key piece here is put them in touch with me. Please don't ask me to call them. I'm a government agency. I'm from a government agency, and we're not salespeople, so we wouldn't naturally be calling folks. But you can certainly include me in on a three-way email. You can set up a phone conference, and I'm happy to take those tough calls about the legality of the contract, how it was bid, any of those types of questions. Please do consider me a resource to help you. So know who you're going to see. Prepare for what you're going to present them and go after and do it. I always like to say, after we're done with this training, it'd be great for you to make a list of, say, 3 to 5 agencies that either you've thought about doing business with and haven't, or maybe you tried in the distant past without success. Get that list and present this contract to them and give it a shot and let me know how that goes. I'd love to hear what you get for feedback on that. Once again, if you've been waiting for bids to hit the streets, stop that. You need to get there sooner, and you'll find you'll have a greater degree of success using this contract. And then my contact information, I'm going to leave this up here just for a few minutes before sliding out of the presentation, and we're going to go look at a couple of quick things on the website because that's another resource I want you to understand how to use, just a couple points on it. Again, my name is Jeremy Schwartz. I'm your contract manager assigned to this contract here at NJPA. I'm happy to help out any way that I can. And if you do need my contact information, Anthony can provide that to you, as well as Vicki or Carolyn. So I'm going to step out of this for now and show you a couple things on our website. So this is the NJPA homepage, www.njpacoop.org, and there is a specific link that is designed for you. It's up in the top right-hand corner called Access for Vendors. So we're going to go out there and I'm going to show you a couple resources that I know will be valuable to you. First and foremost, how to access that video. Will always be located here. You see the web page opened. I just scroll down a little bit here. We're going to open this up and watch this real quick together. And like I said, this is about as simply put as it can be. As you'll see as we watch this, it'll take under 3 minutes to get through.
So you're a public agency purchasing agent, and before making any purchase, you ask yourself the same 2 questions every time. What do I need to buy, and how am I going to buy it? It's your responsibility to award the best vendor to provide the best solution. And if there's no existing vendor contract, you have to bid it, which takes a lot of time and effort because you work really hard to evaluate the best bid for the project. But let's be honest, at the end of the day, best bid usually means a low bid vendor, and it ends up costing your agency in more ways than financial, which begs the question, do you have to do the bid, or does the procurement just have to be bid? Either way, NJPA has the solution. That's right, it's no longer the best-kept secret in the purchasing world. The National Joint Powers Alliance goes through the same competitive bidding process as you, so you don't have to. And they have the legislative authority to procure contracts. NJPA's members' contract use is quickly approaching nearly $1 billion in purchasing annually. They have more than 200 contracts bid on a national level. And by leveraging the volume of the country, they can consider more than just price. You know, other important factors like quality and credibility. And that NJPA national contracts are awarded corporately at the manufacturer level and leveraged locally, supporting the local economy. And get this, NJPA maintains all procurement documentation for you, so everything is stored safely and you have a secure paper trail, and it's all done in one place. It's like you have an existing contract for everything. So say goodbye to the bidding process. Start using the process that's already been done and done well on your behalf. Join NJPA today at njpacoop.org.
All right, so as you can see there, it's a very brief video, but it's very simply put that clarifies how the process works. And you know, it says leverage locally, meaning, yeah, Motion Industries Corporate holds the contract, but it's set up so that the local branches can sell through it, so they can come into the local branch, spend their dollars in a local brick and mortar building. So a lot of advantages, and it's a nice tool if you're going to be meeting with someone and they're fairly foreign to piggybacking, fairly foreign to the concept of cooperative purchasing. It's a great tool I'd recommend that you use for them. Another thing I'd like to show you is off to the side here, same page, vendor resources. If you were to click on that, you can download the contract directory as a PDF. That other brochure I talked about, the critical Don't Leave Home Without One, the About Us brochure, that's right there as well. Back up to that home page again of the vendor access for vendors. Another one that folks are curious about is who are our members. If you click on the membership list link there, give it some time. It's a big Excel file and it's password protected with the word value, V-A-L-U-E, all lowercase. You can download our membership list. Now these are agencies that have at some point in time joined NJPA. Some of them may not have bought in a while. So what I always encourage is to take the membership list, match it up against the procurement history reports I'll be sending to Anthony, and put the two together, and then you can really see who's member as well as who's been using NJPA recently. So a couple resources at your disposal. The last one off here is you can always get to this maroon tab. So say you go in and talk to, I don't know, a city or a K-12 institution, a large school that uses your stuff, and they're not currently a member. By clicking on this maroon tab up here, it'll take you to the page where they can quickly join. They can fill out the online application, or they can print off a paper form and scan it in, fax it in, whatever. It probably takes 5 minutes or less for them to complete the application, and within a 48-hour period, we will have determined if they're an eligible member and assigned a member number, and then they're active to buy. So it's a very quick, streamlined process. So again, from our home page, njpacoop.org, simply click on the Access for Vendors in the top right-hand corner. That's who you are, and that's how you start getting access to all these different resources. If you wanted to learn more about NJPA and our history, you can click on this video link right here. That's probably more of a 9 to 10 minute video. It'll go into even greater detail. So just encourage you when you get a moment to check out all the resources at your disposal. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take a peek and see what other questions we have. I think I've answered most of those. So I'm done with the formal part of our presentation. I'd just like to open it up if anyone else has questions at this time. I'm glad to take those if you wouldn't mind typing those in the chat box. I'm happy to take your questions at this time. Robert wants to know which products are on our contract. Everything except for like the industrial safety line is on there. There's a discount summary that I'll ask Anthony to share with everyone, so that way you can see all the different product categories that are on the contract. Next question is, what if Grainger is quoting the same item? So Grainger, as you're aware, also has an NJPA contract. So there are some areas where there could be overlap, and Grainger can quote through their contract as well as you. In those particular situations, it's going to come down to the member's choice because they legally could purchase through Grainger through their contract or legally purchase through Motion through your contract. Another question came in, how does NJPA differentiate from U.S. communities? We differentiate from U.S. communities in a couple ways. First and foremost, U.S. communities is not a government agency. U.S. communities is actually a for-profit company that markets contracts that were bid by cities or counties, other government agencies. So the lead agency is actually like, for example, City of Tucson, and then U.S. Communities markets the City of Tucson's contract, whereas NJPA is a government agency, so we're our own lead agency. So that's a big difference. Another significant difference is NJPA has significantly more contracts available to our members than U.S. Communities has. A huge difference when you look at equipment-related contracts. They have very few, if any, in that area. So those are a couple differences between U.S. Communities and NJPA. Any other questions? Okay, I have another question that came and says that there's some interest in the program, but as you're out making the calls, sharing about NJPA is that some of the buyers, the cities don't know about the program. Maybe someone else in the organization signed up and didn't bother to tell everyone else about it. And that happens commonly. I can tell you it happens commonly. Part of helping that process is getting your hands on the purchase history reports. If you were to walk back in there and say, hey, this is what your purchase history is, you've been buying this off of that contract, and even more, here's some agencies around you that have been buying off NJPA, that tends to help with those conversations. And also offer to them, hey, if you want to go through the process and rejoin formally again, we can certainly let them do that. Part of that is just letting them realize they're not the only ones. There could be some politics involved where they think someone that wasn't authorized to buy bought through it. So it could be any variation of issues that there are questions that they have. But I'm confident we can provide you with a host of information. Another thing you can do is just call me, email me and say, hey, Jeremy, I'm meeting with county or city or school XYZ. Can you look up in your database? I see they're a member. Can you tell me, do you have record of who signed up, what they might have bought? And we're happy to do that one-off as well. Another question came in is, do I have to set up an existing customer with NJPA if I have existing business? That answer is no. If you already have the business, and you don't need this contract to keep the business, no, you don't have to move it over to them. If, however, they're talking rebid and you're worried about maybe not getting that, you certainly can, but you do not have to move your existing business over to this contract. Very good question. Very good question. Any others out there? Happy to answer them. Got roughly, 6 more minutes, so if there's any other questions, please, by all means, don't hesitate to ask. Oh, one other thing I'd like to mention, there's a facts section posted on InMotion under Policies and Procedures, GovSales/NJPA. So please don't hesitate to go out there on your site, InMotion, under Policies and Procedures, GovSales/NJPA, and take a look at the facts. More resources are in the process of being developed, cheat sheets, if you will, to help you feel even more comfortable with the process of presenting what Motion has under the contract. So please, by all means, head out to your InMotion site and take a peek under Policies and Procedures. Great comments there. Another thing folks sometimes ask is, do you have to sell at the contract price or could you sell for less? This is a good question. This contract is at ceiling price, meaning all we police is that you do not sell above the contract price. If you enter certain situations where you feel you need to sell below the contract price, you certainly can. Obviously, that becomes a business decision, and you'll have to talk within your branch or your territory, but by law, by term and condition of this contract, you can sell below the contract price, just not above. And then a question there specifically for Anthony that I'll forward on to Anthony concerning getting an account signed up for NJPA, maybe Michigan. So I'll forward that one on to Anthony, and I'll let him address that one. Another thing that we want to make sure that you're aware of is as you go out and present this contract and folks look to utilize it, please remember to send account numbers to government sales so that they can link those accounts to the national account number for contract pricing. Another great point that I want to make sure you're aware of is if you are going to attend some local shows, some marketing opportunities where you anticipate having some customers attend that would be interested and be able to use this contract, NJPA is more than happy to provide you free of charge marketing materials. We have little tabletop flags that reference you as a contract awarded vendor. We have some nice large floor decals you can put on to recognize you as a contract awarded vendor. We have a variety of pieces that we can send you as well as all the literature that you might want. So if you're going to be out and about at a trade show or a conference or exhibiting and you'd like to have some materials to make sure attendees are aware that you're a contract awarded vendor, please don't hesitate to let us know. We're happy to send those out. Anthony will be addressing how to find the contract pricing, but it's set up in your system already, the contract price profile, if you will. And also there's a discount summary sheet that we'll share with you as well. So Barry and everyone else, Anthony will follow up with how contract pricing happens in a separate follow-up email as a result of this training. That'll come directly from Anthony Chapman, how this is the price model works in this contract. Great question. Any others out there? All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put my contact information back up on the screen. For those of you that maybe want to just ask questions directly of me, we're about out of time here. Thank you again for attending this session. If there's something in particular, we went through a lot of material. If there's something in particular you'd like to go over again, maybe go over a different page, dig into it a little deeper, please by all means don't hesitate to send me an email or give me a phone call. My job is to help you understand all the ways that you can utilize the contract you've been awarded in approaching that public government education space. So thank you again for attending. Have a great rest of the afternoon.